Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning into another Supatease video. And in this one, we've got major class updates, some pretty juicy buffs for classes in Season of Discovery, as well as the devs breaking radio silence when it comes to retail PvP. So quite an important video to check out. And if you want to make sure that you're staying up to date with news related to World of Warcraft, then smash that subscribe button. Your support is greatly appreciated. So with the balance tuning coming in first, Star Surge is seeing a 182% increase in damage. It was completely useless. I didn't even bother going and getting it, and now my eyes are definitely gravitating to it a lot more. Star Surge is also going to be only a 6-second cooldown, down from 10, so 4 seconds faster. Star Surge's base mana cost is being reduced to 1% from 3, so you can be able to use it more regularly, hopefully without running out of mana to the point where you can't use it anymore. Now in PvP, it is competing with Life Bloom, but this is definitely looking a lot more appealing when you at least have a healer around to keep you alive, because it was hitting less than Wrath before, so now, over doubling it, it's likely going to hit significantly hard. I'm definitely going to go and pick that up. For Hunter, Flanking Strike now gains the benefit of weapon enhancements like Sharpening Stones, is now on global cooldown, and is now properly treated as a melee attack, letting it benefit from attack power and combat modifiers to dodge, parry, block, crit, hit, etc. This is a bit worrying to me when I see changes like this, because it means that there's a giant checklist of things that need to be accounted for, and sometimes they're missed, and it can completely just wonk out the tuning for something to either make it too strong or too weak. So the effects of this are likely going to be positive, though, for melee DPSing hunters. Flanking Strike is now prevented by Pacify. Flanking Strike now requires a weapon equipped. Flanking Strike pet damage is now properly treated as a melee attack with the same benefits as listed above for the hunter's damage. Hunter pet attack values have been updated to better scale with hunter attack power. Developers notes, pets that cast spells such as Scorpion Poison or Lightning Breath were scaling too well, and pets using physical abilities were scaling too little. We've now normalized the amount of attack power gained to scale with the focus cost of individual pet abilities. This means that abilities with a higher focus cost that are cast less often will receive more of a benefit from attack power per attack than abilities with a lower focus cost that can generally be used more often. Overall, this should level out the damage and reduce situations where some abilities were scaling too much or too little with hunter attack power. I do wonder what will happen, because there still will be a best pet, so if this now means that the pets that attack slowly are going to be the best ones, you may need to go and scavenge up for some other pets. Scorpion Poison now distributes the damage, the additional damage it gains from attack power evenly over each stack of Scorpion Poison on the target. Developers note Scorpion Poison received most of its benefit from the hunter's attack power in the very first attack. Now the additional damage gained from the controlling hunter will be gained until 5 stacks of the point. That's a big nerf. I think Scorpion's dead. This increases the ramp time a bit and makes it less immediately deadly in PvP. Pets now receive a smaller portion of a hunter's armor and stamina. Hunter pets were gaining far too much durability from hunter stats, to the point where some pets could get more than double the health and armor of a well-geared level 25 player. We still want dedicated hunters to have the ability to tank certain dungeon and raid encounters, but pets shouldn't be so effective that they become the objectively correct choice. So hunters getting some big nerfs when it comes to pets. Flanking Strike build ain't compensating for these nerfs. These are huge. Aspect of the Lion has been redesigned and will now function as an aura. This means that it's possible to have Aspect of the Lion up in addition to another aspect, such as Aspect of the Hawk, as an offset to the lower amount of damage that some hunter pets will deal. And to make talents such as an improved Aspect of the Hawk more attractive to hunters using Aspect of the Lion, we're shifting Aspect of the Lion into an aura rather than an aspect. This change will go into effect with scheduled weekly maintenance tomorrow, but the tooltip will not yet change. This will come later in another hotfix. So you are getting a little bit of a compensation, but in PvP, maybe it's not going to be that big. Shadow Priests are a big winner on this one. Your Homunculi damage is getting buffed by 100%. Your Void Plague damage is getting buffed by 200%. And your Twisted Fate now increases damage done by Mind Blast and Mind Flay by 50%, up from 20 on targets afflicted with Shadow Word Pain. So Boomkins and Shadow Priests getting some love here. I did not expect this. I thought it was it was already going to be a decided meta, and it was just going to be, the way that it is. It's classic. But they are updating it, and we're getting frequent tuning changes. This is really good to see. It's going to be nice for just experimenting and feeling fresh on a spec that you maybe invested into and now felt bad about. So this is really good. For Rogue, Saber Slash, Shiv, and Main Gauche will now properly consume remorseless attacks. I assume this means more damage rogues. Let me know if I'm wrong about this. Saber Slash's tooltip fixed, damage not reduced. Saber Slash damage is now properly considered a bleed and benefits from the Mangle debuff. Note, bleed immune creatures will no longer be affected by it. So that's a big nerf to you, at least in the first dungeon of BFD, or first raid boss of DFD. BFD, because I know on my druid I've been raiding as Feral, and I hate that he's immune to bleeds, but that's going to be kind of a nerf there in those situations for sure. Shaman, Lava Lash is getting a 150% weapon damage increase from 100%, and Lava Lash's mana cost is going down to 1% from 4. Overload now has a 50% chance to trigger up from 33, and Dual Wield Specialization now grants 10% increased critical strike chance when dual wielding. Boon of Black Fathom World buff has been adjusted. It now provides 3% spell hit and 25 spell power in addition to the physical and movement increasing effects. This is to offset casters feeling weaker than melee DPS. But so melee enhancement, Shadowpriest and Boomkin, the underdogs, getting some big buffs here in terms of DPS overall, which is nice to see. For Black Fathom Depths, we're seeing elemental resistances lowered in the Black Fathom Deeps to levels more appropriate for that raid. So they're lowering their overall resistances so that spellcasters are going to be overall more effective. So really good changes for Classic. I love how transparent they've been and how vocal they've been about it, even when they're making mistakes. As long as they're working towards compensating for those mistakes, it's always going to be seen as a positive. So really a good direction. Now, unfortunately, not 100% is going to be the case for retail. Now, retail PvP has been struggling, obviously, with a lot of issues that have been outlined here in this community council post from Kindy the Evoker, with class imbalance, baseline damage feeling really high, solo shuffle queue times, MMR being completely askew, and this giant essay of stuff that we've been talking about and other content creators have been talking about and we've been really feeling, that's honestly holding back what could otherwise be a really good expansion. I love the systems. The gearing up for Dragonflight have been fantastic. I've honestly been loving the world PvP as well. I think it's probably the best expansion when it comes to world PvP. I like that they are doing frequent changes, but definitely kind of fed up of like a patch comes out and this one spec is just monstrously better. It takes up like 30 to 40% of the overall participation for a spec, and it just becomes incredibly tilting when those patches happen, especially if it's for any sort of a prolonged period of time, like 10.1.7 rets and augmentation evokers thereafter. So it's definitely frustrating. Now, they did listen to feedback when it comes to solo shuffle queue times this patch, because players didn't like getting, an 1800 healer when they're a 2400 DPS, but the downside is that you have to wait for a healer that's 2400, and those don't really exist, especially with how healers are offset to be lower rated on average than DPS. So unless they do something to buff healer MMR, so the healers are getting closer to the high rated DPS, then this system would just never work. They have to go back to the old one, which is still going to probably be better than sitting really long queues. Unfortunately, with the post that they've laid out to address this forum post, it really doesn't talk about much. At the beginning of Dragonflight Season 3, we reduced the maximum rating gap healers could have going into solo shuffle match across all ratings based on feedback we received. We've seen that this resulted in long queue times at higher ratings. To help address this, about a week ago, we increased the rating gap moderately, but only at high ratings, to best preserve matchmaking within the entirety of the ladder. So moderately, I'm still seeing some players. I mean, I'm only 2000 CR on my Boomkin with like 2500 MMR, and I can't get a queue for like hours. So the moderately might need to be a little bit more extreme. I don't know what exactly. It'd be nice if there were specifics of like a 2500 DPS will only queue into a 2000 rated healer, and now we're lowering it to 1950 and being specific about what the numbers are, so we can maybe understand like what's the range on this change, because the rating gap moderately is not really specific enough. This is also not addressing how deflated MMR is in 3v3. I am, multi-rank 1 playing with multi-rank 1s, and we're often queuing at around 1900 to 2100 rating throughout the day, whether it's in the morning or into the evening, usually around that range. And it does not feel right to have rank 1 players playing at that rating range when we had Season 1 where players were 3800 rating in that camp. This is a massive drop in rating. And I mean, obviously it'd be nice if the systems could be completely overhauled. We could have maybe like an Overwatch or a League of Legends type of ranking system with bronze and plat and different tiers and stuff like that. That's obviously something that would only really be possible in an expansion if it ever happens at all. But having this giant fluctuation of where your number is and how you attach and associate yourself to that is going to affect people's mental when they're queuing, and they're just going to really feel like, why am I even bothering? I'm stuck at 1500 now when I was 2300 at the end of last season. And it is starting to have some bad diminishing returns, I think, on player retention season to season. In a bubble with this system with inflation works really well in one singular season, but when it resets into the next, and if populations drop down and it's deflated even heavier after that, it doesn't work whatsoever. So I was really hoping there would be more from this post. It is definitely better than nothing. And hopefully they're going to continue monitoring it like they've said, and they'll be able to do more, but they also need to address just flat out MMR in 3v3 as well, because it's way too deflated and it needs a lot of attention there. Right now, I would say MMR is the main thing that is hurting Dragonflight's PvP. It's just not been hit right. I think the game is actually in a better spot if they just go back to Season 1 MMR, where everybody is super high rated and people feel good about themselves, then super deflated, and now everybody's like, wow, I feel really bad. Like, I can't even get close to where I was before. moving into maybe even the rest of the season or the next season. But let me know in the comments down below. Definitely a big W for Classic this week as far as class changes. And it's nice that we are at least hearing something for retail. And hopefully it's going to be enough, or hopefully will be addressed to be enough into the future, and they can address the other things that have been brought up as well. But other than that, thank you very much for watching the video, and I will see you in the next one.